Hi, everyone. I'm here with Dave Roberts. He is an author, a keynote speaker, an adjunct professor at Utica University in New York. And he has been in the field of mental health, worked with many veteran groups amongst other communities as well when it comes to mental health. And so, uh, Dave, yeah, please share a little bit more about yourself and what you do and how you've helped the community through the years.
Well, thank you, Mickey, and thank you for the opportunity to share my expertise with your audience. I'm a retired addictions counselor and private practitioner. I worked for 27 years in an inpatient addiction treatment facility in upstate New York, where I was a clinical supervisor and an addictions counselor. I worked with individuals from all walks of life, veterans, young adults, individuals, with abuse histories, histories of chemical dependency, mental illness such as PTSD, depression, schizophrenia, and in private practice, I worked with individuals with all different types of mental health challenges. And my primary passion now, in addition to being a podcaster, my primary passion is working with young adults
Mm.
and sharing what I've experienced and learned over the last 33 years in the hopes of making them helping them become, I think, not only good students but good professionals and good citizens. So that's where my passion lies now, in addition to doing bereavement support for individuals who have gone through challenges with life-altering loss. So um, that's an encapsulated version of my life in about 2 or 3 minutes.
It's we had just completed our conversation with my father and family story on your podcast, and we'll put the link down to the full conversation that I just had with Dave. But the thing that we talked about and the focus in our conversation was around the veteran community. May it be veterans from the wars 50, 60 years ago and the veterans of today. What are some of the common themes or the common things that you see veterans coming back and trying to assimilate to this, this civilian life and the struggles that they see so that if it resonates with a veteran out there, then maybe there's avenues for them to find help with folks such as yourself.
Well, I think one of the things, Mickey, is that especially if they're individuals that have witnessed war or have been in direct combat, just the unique challenges stemming from the military experiences. You're looking at PTSD, trauma, depression, anxiety, and really difficulties with readjustment to civilian life. And this is my own perception. I think the things that individuals have had to do during combat don't align with, I guess, what I'd say total societal norms. You have to really think, I think, outside of the box. And it's about, to me, my interpretation, it's about survival.
Mm,
Sometimes I think you do what you need to do to make it through that situation, but there may be some guilt, there may be some remorse afterwards because of the actions. And to try to explain that to civilians who don't understand, I think is one of the challenges. I've been so transformed with my war experience. How does I reassimilate back into society? And even if I do, how do people understand what I go through? And do I even want to tell them what I went through?
mm,
Um, because normally an individual who hasn't served in combat or served in the military isn't going to even come close to understanding what that experience was like.
mm.
So, I mean, to me, those were some of the challenges, I believe.
Yeah.
And also, there's a stigma around asking for help,
Mm,
for in general. I mean, my students who have have struggled with depression and anxiety will sometimes have trouble. Excuse me, I'm wiping my nose here.
mhm.
Um, will have trouble asking for help. And I think individuals in general just have trouble asking for help. And again, depending on the messages they got in the military, asking for help may be even more stigmatized depending on the attitudes of asking for help in the military. So that may make it more difficult coming back home. Um, The veterans that I've worked with, what I've found to be effective is being non-judgmental,
Mm.
being very empathic, establishing myself as a listener. Like in the podcast that you and I just had, I wanted to bear witness to your father's and your family's story about what it was like during the last days of Saigon during the Vietnam War. It would have been, from my perspective, disrespectful for me to interrupt any of that process. So for me, it's bearing witness and allowing the veteran to share what they're comfortable sharing. If they feel like they have gone a little too far or don't want to go any farther, I need to be able to respect that, let them find their emotional comfort zone and, because my objective is to build a long-term relationship, and I want them to at least trust me. The other thing that I also need to be is very upfront with the fact that, one, I don't understand what it's like to be in the military and be a part of combat, um, but that I'm willing to hook that veteran up with whatever resources that they need. For me, it's not having ownership over that patient or over that client, however they're categorized, depending on the level of treatment they're at. But it's essentially, as a case manager, understanding my limitations and providing those resources that will compensate for it. So, for example, if they already have somebody that they're dealing with in the Veterans Administration,
Mm.
I am going to want to ask that veteran, would you be willing to sign a release so that me and your counselor at the VA can communicate so that we're on the same page, that you're not getting mixed messages, and that I'm not overstepping any bounds, any boundaries with him or her, in terms of what you're working with specifically. I want to make sure that those boundaries are clear, that the communication is clear. Um, and also helping them find any peer support groups. And again, the Veterans Administration has a lot of, veteran support groups because they need to be understood and supported. If I can't understand that experience directly, as a case manager, I need to be able to provide the resources that can help that veteran be understood and to assimilate back into to just everyday life
Mm.
and to respect that. And the other thing I always like to encourage for when veterans when they're coming back is they get a comprehensive physical and psychiatric
Mm.
evaluation, particularly to screen for, maybe previously undiagnosed concussive symptoms or, post-concussive symptoms or TBI specifically, particularly if they've been if they've been um, in areas where there, bombs are going off or they themselves may have been hurt or damaged by a bomb. So it's that comprehensive assessment as well too, and just empowering that veteran to and being kind of like a co-traveler on the road for them to reassimilate back into American society again, and basically offer suggestions, offer guidance, but not offer advice or basically say this is how you have to do that because I wouldn't want that to be done to me. And essentially, I want that veteran to be empowered to determine how they're going to reestablish and reengage in life to the best of their ability.
Mm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. We know that anybody that has gone through wartime or missions or battles, uh, they're seeing things that a normal human being should not, not see and not have to go through. But if you did go through those moments of trauma and the grief, the guilt, many of the things that that you specialize in, for veterans, uh, do they reach out to their local VA? What's sort of the process to get that mental help, you know, for that veteran community?
Well, particularly, I know one of the points of entry, probably where they're coming back, is the Veterans Administration here,
Okay.
locally in the United States. But there's also other organizations. There's mental health organizations in their community. One of the things that I've seen, and that's always been an issue since I started in the human service field in the 80s, is a resource issue.
Okay.
There's always more individuals that need treatment than there are resources to provide it.
Mm.
Um, I think. I mean, I would check initially with mental health resources in their community. Obviously, hook up with the Veterans Administration as soon as they can. The VA will provide obviously counseling services, but there's other organizations that may also deal with veterans in the community that
Mm,
are not VA sponsored, that that they can hook up with. So I think that's the point. The thing, and also peer support, any type of support groups they could get into for for military veterans who are dealing with PTSD
mm,
or dealing with the challenges of wartime duty. I think that's important. I think the combination of therapy and support, particularly in this instance, is going to help individuals, I think, adjust and meet their goals better than either one by themselves. And I'm
excellent.
a firm believer in that combination. Competent support groups and support groups that that person can align with that understand their unique journey, along with good mental health therapist who works with trauma, who's very trauma informed, works with PTSD, is very patient, very non-judgmental, um, and also is willing to share that client with other resources in the community for the
Mm,
best interest of that client. It
yeah.
is truly interdisciplinary, Mickey.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you for offering the process, the steps for any, of our
Yeah.
veteran communities going through this, you know, challenge. I want to pivot. I want to pivot the
Uh,
conversation and talk about what you had mentioned, your passion in terms of working with the younger, the next generation, right? And what do you see right now in terms of the youth, uh, social media and acceptance and peer pressure, all of those things. Talk about what you're doing right now within the younger aged community out there, the youth.
Well, first of all, I have to share that it is an absolute joy spending time with the younger
Mm,
generation. These are young adults that have a hunger to learn. They want to learn, but they also want to be understood.
mm,
I think one of the things, and I remember Mickey when I was 18 years old, not having to deal with the challenges that these young adults are dealing with at 12 years old. We never had social media when I was 18.
yeah.
I mean, I remember we register for classes now totally online. I remember doing paper and pencil and walking it into the registrar's office. So, and especially now with, yeah, both of us did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're both,
Scantrons.
yeah. It's triplicate.
Yeah. Yeah.
We used to have like one copy, a duplicate
Yeah.
copy. We used to
Yeah.
do all that stuff,
Yep.
and but now it's like everything is online. They are subject to 24 hours a day of information,
Mm,
and a lot of times one of the challenges with young adults that we see is they compare themselves on social media.
yeah.
Um, and social media only gives you a piece of who you are,
Mm,
but yet they spend a lot of time on social media. Um, and that's also one of the concerns. The other things that we worry about is particularly suicidal
mm,
ideations in that population. I was reading someplace that the second leading cause of death with between with of 15 to 29-year-olds is suicide.
mm.
And that could be higher because a lot of deaths by suicide don't get reported
Yeah.
because of the stigma.
Right.
The thing with young adults, what I've learned is I don't take half of what they do seriously
Mm,
because they're just a lot of fun. But when they're serious, you know it. And if you challenge them, yet support them, realize that they have lives, they have other categories other than being a student, and you're willing to work with them, you're gold in their eyes. And you also have to you have to really enjoy teaching and enjoy working with young adults. I get a kick out of every time that I get an email from a former student who said, I still remember your notes from your death, dying, and bereavement class. I
mm,
still talk about your class. I still remember what you taught me. And it's not to pat myself on the back, but we all want to leave a mark in this world, you know? We all want to, like your father wanted to leave a legacy. You want to leave a legacy for your father with your new book. You want all that. We don't want to be forgotten. We want to be remembered for the impact that we had. So when I get an email, it charges me up because it tells me I've left an impact on that student. And the other thing, I got my passion got rekindled due to my own personal tragedy with,
Mm,
as you know, we talked about
yeah.
with my daughter, and I
Right.
call it transitioning to a new existence
Right.
over 22 years ago when she
That's right.
was 18 due to cancer.
Yeah.
Um, I look at every one of these young adults as an extension of my own family,
Mm,
and I feel a commitment to them
that's
because of the commitment that I had to my daughter and to my
yeah.
own kids. And I feel like I want to use what I've learned from the challenges with my daughter's death to make a difference with the young adults in this and every young adult I tell them, you're all an extension of my family, and if I can only figure out how
Mm.
to write you all off on my income tax, I'd be a rich man. But um but that's my passion at this point, and they keep me young. Trust me, they keep me young.
Yeah.
Um, I've learned how to text because of my kids and my granddaughter. Um, and I've learned, and that's another way that, students can get in touch with me. I mean, I invite technology into the classroom and say, look, if you can't log into your email, you want to text me, go right ahead and text me. Just let me
Mm.
know who you are. And so it's also trying to find out what moves them, what motivates them.
Yeah.
Not being like them, but aligning with their interests and trying to understand their interests and bear witness to that. Much like we would bear witness to any person's story
Mm.
or their life path. So, um, and towards the end of my career as an addictions counselor, we saw, Mickey, a lot of 18 to 24-year-old opioid addicts
Mm.
that were coming into treatment.
Mm.
And and again, that fuels my passion for I'm working with young adults as well too. And I'll keep doing it for as long as I'm physically and cognitively able to do it.
Yeah. Bless you. Seeing how you're honoring your daughter and giving back to the the youth community and helping in your way is just outstanding. Bravo to you. You know, in your work around that. So beautiful story. Um, I want to conclude this conversation in that you have a podcast, you've got your website. What is your you talked about passion for working with kids and youth. Your podcast, your channel, and the platform that you're doing. Do you want to talk about, yeah.
Yeah. Um, the Teaching Journeys podcast, this was inspired by two very persistent students who insisted that I bring the lessons in the classroom into the podcast community.
Mm.
And they really would not let up on me they didn't give it up. I mean, they were very persistent for about a year. And finally, when I had other individuals other than my students telling me that, you ought to do a podcast, I kind of figured the universe was telling me you ought to do a podcast. So my son, who has his own Buffalo Bills podcast,
Mm.
he told me, here's a platform that you would use to put your audio podcast on. Here's the mic that you should use. He got me set up, and on March 31st, 2023, we released the first episode. We've released 125 episodes since that time. And and the mantra of the podcast is we're all students and teachers, so let's learn from each other.
Mm.
So I have individuals on the program who have transcended challenges and are willing to share the tools that they use to transcend challenge. I have individuals like yourself who have wonderful stories to tell of resilience and what life lessons we can take from that. I've had clinicians and coaches on who have been willing to share their techniques that have helped individuals transcend loss. Um, and it's just turned out to be, if initially I thought it was going to be more, centered out around trauma and grief, but it's branched out to a lot of different
Mm.
areas now where we can learn from other people's life paths. We can incorporate skills that may not necessarily have been learned because of their challenges with grief and trauma, but just through life itself that can help individuals um, lead the life of their choosing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. The You also wrote a book. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes, during the pandemic, I wrote a book with my mentor, my colleague, my friend, my sister from another mother, Reverend Patty Farina.
Mm.
Um, I met her through pure serendipity, pure synchronicity. Um, and I found myself in Long Island in November of 2010, 7 years after my daughter Janine transitioned, and Reverend Farino facilitated a spiritually transformative experience that allowed me to find peace with my daughter's past transition and to believe in in the survival of our consciousness after death.
Mm.
So the book outlines the highlights of that spiritually transformative experience. It gives a microcosm of our conversations that we had that talk about how spirituality and psychology could come together to help individuals transcend challenge and, gain greater awareness about themselves, their behaviors, and their relationship to the world, and the importance of critical thinking for the present and younger generation. And we've been pleased. The book was released We rolled out the book on March 1st, 2021, and we did
Mm.
that purposely because March 1st, 2003 was the date that my daughter transitioned
Wow.
to a new existence. So
Wow.
we planned it for that date. Um, we've gotten some wonderful reviews on Amazon, some wonderful reviews comments from individuals who have read it, so we're grateful. And we want that book, obviously, to get in as many hands as possible, help as many people as it's destined to help.
Mm.
And so far it's been doing that, and we just want to see it more. The story itself is timeless. I think you can pick up that book 10 years, our book 10 years later, and it's still going to have something for everybody.
Beautiful. Beautiful. You mentioned spirituality, uh, and I think you have a few videos and uh, information that talks around that. Myself, I had a what classified label a spiritual awakening about 10 years ago,
Hmm.
and woke up to the truth of reality here, the matrix here, and we call it. And one of the quotes that I heard that we are not. Uh, a human thinking that there's a spiritual where the quote and I'm butchering it, but
That's okay.
in essence it's like we are spirit having
Yeah.
a human experience
Yeah. Yeah.
and coming back in this lifetime and in uh you know so the question I ask you is, do you believe in reincarnation? I'm
Yes.
coming up. Oh, beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Yes, I do. I believe, Mickey, we've done this more than once. I don't think this is our first time in the physical incarnation. Um, there is a marvelous book that got me on that path. Um, Bri- Brian Weiss, who's an MD, it's called Many Lives, Many Masters.
Mm,
And he worked with a client who had 86, her soul had 86 different incarnations into the
mm,
physical experience, 13 of which were unresolved issues were getting in the way of her current issues in her current lifetime. And
mm.
through regression hypnosis, past life regression therapy, he was able to um, she was able to find peace and happiness. And so yeah, I do believe in that.
Yeah.
Um, and
I
I do believe in that.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Edward as a Casey, Mr. Casey,
Edgar
and
Casey.
yeah, Dolores Cannon, right? Bring people into a deep state of relaxation, hypnosis, down to the point where it's like they can remember their past life. And when we
Yep.
talk about the Matrix, something in this new life, we came in, we agreed to come back to this,
Yep.
life form, and some our memory got erased, but for some people, a little bit of that memory still
Yep.
remained behind to remember,
Yep.
a little bit about the past. And so, uh,
Yep. And I think the quote is that we're not human beings living a spiritual experience or spirit. No, no, we're not we're 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 not human. I'm butchering it now too, but it's
we're on the
um
same, we're on the
we're-
same.
I'm butchering it too. I'll figure it out. Then I'll email you and say, here's the quote, Mickey.
Oh, it's hard to find folks that can talk, spirituality.
Uh-huh.
Religion is not spiritual. Religion is religion, but spirituality is it's all around us,
Yeah.
And it's one of those subjects in the past 10 years I've been going down many different rabbit holes, and reincarnation is one of those rabbit holes that they've suppressed that. What I read, they've suppressed that in the Bible, and they've suppressed that in many different areas, so that I don't want to go down that area, but it's not talked about in mainstream from that standpoint. So
Well, I talk about it in my death, dying, and bereavement class.
awesome.
So yeah, we go down that rabbit hole. I have a whole section called "Do We Survive Death?" And it
Yep.
gets into after death communication, signs from our loved ones.
Wow.
Um, we talk about Brian Weiss's work with past life regression therapy. Ian Stevenson and Jim Tucker did research with reincarnation episodes with children who came in remembering past lifetimes.
Mm,
Um, we talk about near-death experiences where people have actually died, left their bodies, and come back. They've seen the afterlife and come back. I expose my students to all of that information because I tell them you never know
mm,
if you're going to be working with a child all of a sudden starts talking about World War II history.
mm.
A 3-year-old or 6-year-old isn't capable of making up those elaborate fantasies.
Yeah.
And if he's experiencing that, he's lived it. I want you to be aware of what that is. And we also talk about the role of mediums in the death system, how to find credible mediums, how to teach individuals if they come to see you, how do I find a medium? Well, here's what you can tell them to look for. So we do the traditional death and dying stuff that they need to know,
Mm,
how to help individuals work through grief, but we also talk about the spiritual aspects or the non-ordinary phenomenon that makes us question, do we actually die?
yeah.
Or do we go on it in a different capacity? And excuse me here, Mickey, for some reason my nose started running and
No, no
I
problem.
I apologize. So there, yeah, we could talk for another hour on that.
Oh yeah, I love it. I've been learning, just so much about the spiritual world, and the awakening process. Just so many different paths and rabbit holes that they say, and so yeah, maybe that's another conversation.
I think so. When I look at the fact that I saw your father Bon and Captain Paul Jacobs together.
Hmm.
You almost wonder. I wonder if they agreed their souls agreed before they came down on this earth that they were going to connect.
Wow.
Well, in a war that divided so many people. I think divided people in the United States, and I'm sure divided the country of Vietnam as well too.
Yeah.
Um, and then that one moment you saw different cultures come together
Mm.
for, in one show of shared humanity.
Right.
Um, and I remember watching that documentary and coming and also feeling emotional when I don't know if it was Paul Jacobs or somebody else that they had interviewed. I think in the embassy, in the American embassy, they were upset and you could see tears in his eyes that they could not get everybody out. And they wanted to get everybody out. And
Yeah,
it didn't matter if you were American, it didn't matter if you were South Vietnamese, you were humans who were bounded together in the utmost, extenuating circumstances and trying circumstances and challenging circumstances. And you saw that, and that's the way we should feel about our fellow man, not the division or polarization that we feel. We need to we are bound together by the shared DNA of humanity. We just need to realize that.
yeah. Um, yeah, so many things are going through my head. Now we've opened up another can of, spirituality conversation. But the one thing that I've learned through this whole spiritual learning thing here is, and it's part of the whole healing process. And again, I'm not a professional. We'll leave that to folks like you, but acceptance, right?
Yeah.
Acceptance is one of those steps towards healing and recovery. And as it ties back into the world of spirituality, it's like,
Ooh, excuse me.
yeah, it's like we all agree, whether it be your loved one or your friend or your enemy, we all agreed before coming into this, incarnating in this lifetime, we all agreed to that collaborative interaction.
Uh-huh.
May it be good, bad, or indifferent. We all
That's
agreed
right.
to it. As I go through the spiritual process, it's like, oh, we agree. I agreed to this learning moment, right?
That's right.
The bad things that I've done in this relationship, the good things that I've agreed to all of it. So from that standpoint, it's allowed me to, in some form, like acceptance with it, acceptance, and find some way to take the next step out of that, that darkness. So, for me, spirituality is one of those things I'm learning more and more every day, and I love talking about that with folks, professionals like you that really have done deep into it. I've listened to Dolores Cannon on YouTube's and
Yeah.
folks like that, and it's just a blessing to you know talk about it with folks like you around there around spirituality. So,
Oh yeah. So I mean, I had never always believed in the spiritual aspects that spirituality was never a big part of my life. But after my daughter transitioned, it
mm,
became a big part of my life. And Patty, Farino was a big part of that. She basically opened up a whole new world to me, and I would kept exploring spiritual concepts and seeing how this would integrate with my core beliefs. And I'd call her up and say, I think this could work. And the thing is that a lot of people think, well, if I incorporate new beliefs, I got to abandon my old beliefs. Well, you don't have to. You can just in addition to.
mm,
There's a place for science in my world, and there'll always be a place for science. But
mhm.
there's also now a place for spirituality and holistic practices. And I think the two can merge quite nicely to
Yeah,
give us a greater understanding of ourselves and our behavior and our relationship to the world around us.
yeah, absolutely. Uh, with that said, Dave, thank you so much again for the time to share about your background, your story, and the mission that you're on. Beautiful, beautiful. Anything you want to say to conclude out?
Um, just show grace to yourself, be kind to
Mm,
yourself, um, and always stay curious.
mm,
Don't
uh,
stop learning. You're never too young or you're never too old to learn, or we're never too young or too old to learn from each other.
absolutely. And with that said, I'm going to leave Dave's links, his book links, and his website, his podcast links on this recording. So again, thank you, Dave, for your time today, and just wonderful talking with you.
Mickey, it was wonderful talking with you. Thank you for the opportunity.